So, I want to talk for a second about the upcoming November election and what to do if you're kind of an undecided voter. I would tell you to base it on a few things, but first of all, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the Russia-Ukraine war. Why is that? Why is that such an important thing? Well, if that gets out of hand, we're all dead. That's why. You might say, well, that's crazy talk. It's not going to get out of hand. Everything's under control. It's just not going to get to that point. But it definitely could get to that point. If they start to use tactical nuclear weapons, like little baby nukes, battlefield nukes as they call them, that could escalate. And in fact, in most war game scenarios, it does escalate the situation. And it turns into a thermonuclear war very quickly. And then you know what? The whole game's over, basically, at that point. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. So, got to understand where the two sides stand on this issue. The Biden-Harris administration say that we're going to support Ukraine for the next decade. We're going to financially support them for the next decade, even though our country is in real bad spot financially, but that's what they say. Trump, on the other hand, says at least that he will end the war very quickly. That he'll basically force negotiations between the two countries and end the war. So, it remains to be seen whether or not he would do that, attempt to do that, or be able to pull that off. But he says at least he would be willing to do that he would do that. Russia was interested in hearing that. They said that, that basically they made the point that that was an optimistic statement that Trump made. That's the elephant in the room, folks. Just understand that. So, the other reasons are this. Southern border is a total mess. Trump at least says he's going to get it under control. Now, the numbers of children that have gone missing in 2022 were like 89,000 or 90,000. The new numbers that came out for recent history is that that's up to 325,000 now. Those are probably estimates that are probably very low because they don't know what happens to all the gotaways. So you're talking about kids in the most horrendous of circumstances, in some cases sex slavery, in some cases actual slavery, that are just gone, missing. That happened under Harris. That happened under Biden. Trump wants, very much so, to shut this problem down. They're not even talking about it on the left. They're perfectly fine, seemingly, for letting it go on. And if you look into things like Aurora, Colorado, and what's happening with the Venezuelan gangs that have taken over multiple apartment buildings, if you look into that and just think into the future about where this will go, if this type of thing isn't stopped, that would just spread into other cities. And before you know it, we would turn into like a third world country where nobody's safe. So that's the second reason. There's the inflation thing that's totally out of control. Now, you could argue that Trump was partially to blame for some of it. He did spend a lot of money. I mean, let's just be honest. But he is talking about making some changes that would at least, in theory, tend to fix that, where the people on the left aren't making any kind of real moves towards doing so. And to be honest, not 100% like where I completely am sold on everything Trump's ever said or done. I'm not. A lot of things I think that he said are horrible. But I honestly believe that if he doesn't get in, we're going to be in a world of trouble in this country. I really do believe that. Now, when he gets in, we need to hold him accountable, because it's my opinion and belief that there's definitely people surrounding him that I'm at least not very much of a fan of. People that are very much into like the surveillance state and really ramping that up. And I think that as a society, we don't need to change into like a Orwellian nightmare that like China is, as an example. But there's definitely powers and forces that are trying to get us to that point. I mean, there's people on the left that are trying to do this as well. That all still being said, I believe in my heart that if we don't at least get the presidency, and ideally, hopefully, Congress and the Senate, then we're going to be in a real hairy situation going forward. Because I don't really know that we could endure another 4 years of this without the wheels really falling off. So, you got to think about this. You really got to think about these things. And just understand that you have to leave emotion at the door and just do a side-by-side comparison of what you get from each party. This is actually a pretty rare instance where you get a snapshot of both. In other words, it's not like one person who's not been in the presidency yet. You've seen them both. So you know what to expect, generally speaking. Just try to remember that come election time, because this country definitely needs some help. I'm a Christian, obviously. You see the cross around my neck. I really believe that the farther society in general falls away from God, the more insane and nutty and crazy it gets. And I feel like we're seeing that in real time. It would definitely behoove a lot of people to start to have a real, conversation with themselves about spiritual matters. In a world that seems to be turning us back on Christ, on God, you see what happens when people fall away from what is good and righteous. So, take care.